Hello and thank you for joining us for Art Rocks with me, James Fox Smith from Country Roads magazine. The painter and sculptor Ronald Trahan has spent decades creating musically inspired mixed metal sculpture in the place of his birth, Port Allen, Louisiana. Port Allen is not a large town, it lies right across the Mississippi River from downtown Baton Rouge. But it's one where Trahan traces deep roots. Now, the West Baton Rouge Parish Museum is honouring Trahan for both the inherent musicality of his sculptural work and for his enduring commitment to the place that he calls home. Let's watch.
So we feature different artists in the rotating exhibits, but for our permanent exhibits, we're very pleased to feature Mr. Ronald Trahan, our favorite son of the Port Allen Cultural District, and also Angela Gregory exhibit, who has work all over Louisiana, including a monument here in Port Allen. We have enjoyed Mr. Ronald's work for decades here at the museum. Our director of programs has worked with him over the years with art in the schools and different exhibits. He's been featured in several exhibits, but to have a room that's dedicated to his art here, it's really an honor.
I started real young. I started at, I'm gonna say at the age of 13. My mother always took us to New Orleans, to the Mardi Gras. She took me to the French Quarter. And I seen the little trees. They was making it wire, copper wire, and it was bronze melted on it. And I couldn't do any of it, so I went and asked my uncle. He was a mechanic. And he showed me the technique of brazing. And I came back to my shop and I started experimenting. I got the saline tank, I got the lines and the torch. What you do, you burn the metal, and it just runs on the floor and you get burned. It took me about a couple of months, and I gradually got the technique where it would stay on the metal. You have to watch the metal, and when the copper started to sweat, when it's cooler, and then it flows onto the copper. It's a mental thing. You have to kind of create a picture in your mind. What I used to do is, when I first started, was do it out of clay. I'd take some soft clay and form figures. But once I got to doing it a lot, I create that in my mind and I just work on it until it starts taking shape of what you want. So it's a combination of focusing a thought while you're working. It comes automatically. Shaping and bending the metal gives you more freedom. I used to do the wood, but once you cut that wood off, you can't put it back on. But with the metal, I can twist the shape, and then I take the torch and tack it. If I don't like the shape, I untack it and twist the wire again until I feel the rhythm and the movement and what I want to create. And listen to jazz music helped me a lot too. It helped clear out some of the thoughts. Some of it from where I come from. It's called Easy Town. They had a lot of clubs on North Acadian way back. And Slim Harpo was in the club. He was playing.
A man need a woman need a man.
And Henry Gray was performing.
Up at the blues.
And the band was playing. He didn't have a lot. It looked like he had two musicians with him. He was playing the piano. My brother played saxophone. Gussie, he was named after my dad, and he played in the band. And I guess that saxophone always had a closer connection to me. By him, I used to remember him practicing with the saxophone. I picked it up, but I was more or less playing with it. I got one in my shop. I got one from a pawn shop. But the idea of playing it, I listen to jazz, a lot of jazz music. I play around with it, and I dance with the saxophone. I had a lady I did a piece on
They call her Mama Lucci. Mama Lucci used to get on the table and stand up, and she had a can opener strapped to her wrist where she used to open these little short cans of beer and drink it. What I was doing at those clubs, I was picking up the frustration those people had from working for other people in the plantation and not having an identity of themselves. And that's what I recognized in the dancing, the music, and the fights. I remember at a club in New Orleans, might have been a relative of mine. Somebody asked him, and he said he was independently poor. And I thought about that. And I said, I'm in that category. Because what I did, I wasn't making enough money on the job. I had my kids working, I was paying them off, and I paid my bills. That was it. But my artwork gave me freedom, and that's why I could connect with those people in the club through my work. I say they was free. Just for a minute or two, they was free. I spent not a lot of time, but some time with Frank Haight, and he expressed some of the same feeling about his work giving him the freedom, but the freedom was limited. That's limited by the sale. See, you can sell so much, but they won't give you the big money the other side was getting. You're free while you're doing it, but once the work get out, for it to get into the high bracket of the blacks don't get that. Alvin Margulies, he connected to some of those pieces because his son was a promoter of the Jazz Fest. He bought two pieces. One I did of a saxophone player, Kenny G, and I took a piece of my hair and I put it on that saxophone player, and he connected with that. He paid me, I think it was $1,500 or $1,000. That was a lot of money, but he recognized my work and what went through in that piece. Just wasn't the piece itself, it was a part of me in that piece. The dip. My father, he used to drink in the nightclubs. He'd come in the morning or in the evening, he had his bottle in the garage. He would go get a nip, and he'd come back and he'd get in the kitchen and he'd do a couple steps. And just a few steps, and then he would tell a story about the dip. My mother, she didn't like the idea of him drinking. The alcohol had a certain part of it, and the music, but they were seeking freedom. The freedom of that movement and the dip, because he always would do that.
I sent an application to get into the jazz festival, and when I was accepted, I had the jazz funeral I made. And people started asking me would I make single pieces from off of the funeral. And when I started doing that, they started selling. And they started asking me, no, you make a guitar player, a fiddle player, a trumpet player, saxophone player. And they started collecting, and it went on and on.
Because a lot of them ask me, say how much, time it takes. But from my doing it so long, it doesn't take me a lot of time. But I don't value my work as time. If it takes me an hour or 2 hours to do a piece, like their value of welder, he makes $50, $60 an hour. But when you do a product, you not only get a part of the idea, you get a part of me, because that thought and that process It's processed in my mind and comes out. And so like I'm saying about the people express their feeling of being depressed for working for somebody else and not getting anything. That transfer from the mind, the body, and the spirit. When I was invited to the West Baton Rouge Museum to view what they had put up, when I stepped in and saw my studio on the wall, it just a feeling overwhelmed me about what had happened throughout my life had come to a moment, and it gave me a feeling of relief. Something I've been doing all my life since I've been small. And to finally see my whole life represented in a room, it just brought me great joy. The moment I've been waiting for has come.
For the opening of this exhibit, it was so nice to see multi-generations of his family here. There was a Trahan family reunion, and just the pride and smiles as big as day. Come and see and let him see how his work benefits the world.